Here to go in depth on this issue and many others, Alan Dershowitz, the famed defense attorney, the former Harvard law professor, and current Newsmax blogger. Alan also the author of the new ebook, Terror Tunnels, the case for Israel's just war against Hamas. Alan, welcome back to America's Forum.
Thanks. It's always a pleasure to be on with you.
And Alan, let's take up this whole notion of a travel ban.
Yeah.
What is your reaction to that notion?
Well, first, it's clearly constitutional. The Congress has the power, as does the President, to protect the public health by banning travel by non-citizens to the United States. We can simply deny visas. There's no constitutional issue there. If he were, or if Congress were to try to prevent American citizens who, say, were sick and wanted to come back to the country for the best medical care, that would pose a different problem, and I don't think we could keep them out of the country. We could require them to be subject to a quarantine once they came in the country, but I think an American citizen generally has the right to return to his country and seek the best medical care.
But again, you do believe it is feasible a citizen returning could be placed in quarantine.
That's right. And there are cases that go back to the days where the fear was tuberculosis and cholera, and there are a lot of old cases permitting fairly drastic remedies to prevent the spread of illness, including the declaration of martial law in a couple of cases where, there were real serious threats of airborne contagious diseases. So there's plenty of power that the Constitution gives Congress and the President to protect the public health.
Well, people hear those two words, martial law, and they react with great concern.
And they should. There's no need for that. And what's needed is a nuanced response that fits the problem. And it should be handled never as a political issue, but always as a public health issue. And it should be handled without regard to race. We shouldn't have a different rule if it's Africa than if it's Europe or Australia. We just have to make sure to dot our constitutional I's and cross our constitutional T's, and I think we'll be okay.
Alan, let us move to another topic that continues to be controversial, same-sex marriage. There are reports that the government is now prepared to force ordained ministers to perform same-sex marriages or go to jail.
Clearly unconstitutional and stupid. First of all, my answer to gay marriage has always been nobody should have a marriage ordained by the state. The state should ordain civil unions for everybody. Everybody gets a civil union, man, woman, man, woman, woman. Then if you want to get a marriage, which is a religious ceremony, you go to a church or a synagogue or a mosque that's willing to marry you. And if you're a Jew who wants to marry a non-Jew, don't expect an Orthodox rabbi to marry you. If you're a Catholic who wants to marry another man, if you're a man, don't expect a traditional priest to marry you. That's a religious issue. But the idea of the government compelling a minister, a priest, or a rabbi to go against their religion is so clearly and blatantly in violation of the actual text of the Constitution that it wouldn't stand any chance of being upheld.
So where is the legal rationale for this? You say the Constitution is clear. How are they trying to make the argument?
You can't. You cannot make the argument. I'd love to hear somebody try to make it that a priest, a minister, or a rabbi can be compelled to marry somebody. They have the alternative of going to a clerk. You can compel a clerk to marry somebody because they hold a job by the state. And if they're not prepared to marry two gay people, then they shouldn't have that job. But you can't require a private citizen who happens to be a rabbi, a minister, or a priest to perform a religious obligation against their will. What if you required a rabbi to marry a Jew to a non-Jew? And that's prohibited by Orthodox Judaism. My view is that they should be permitted to marry without regard to religion. But I'm not the rabbi. The rabbi makes their own decision. You can't compel that. That's just so outside of the American framework that it would be laughable if it weren't so serious.
And as you were speaking, Alan, we took a look at screen capture of the article that appears on the Daily Signal about this. Tell you what, there's so much to talk about. Alan, we're going to ask you to stay with us. We're going to a break. When we come back, we'll talk more about these issues in the news with our friend Alan Dershowitz. He says it's clearly unconstitutional to try to force an ordained minister of any faith to engage in same-sex marriage. Your views on that and more as we continue here.